Hello, everyone, and welcome to Zoom on Technology.
All right, let's just dive right in. The big question, right? Who has it the worst? I mean, you can't scroll through your phone for 2 minutes without seeing this debate. You've got millennials talking about impossible housing prices and Gen Z trying to navigate the pressures of a life lived completely online. But what if we're all overlooking the real story here?
Yeah, there's this one group that is consistently, and I mean consistently, left out of the conversation. Just take a look at global search interest. The world is literally less than half as interested in Gen X as they are in any other generation. They've kind of become culturally invisible.
But here's the thing. Just because nobody's talking about you doesn't mean you're thriving. In fact, when you start to dig into the data, a very different story emerges. A story of a quiet, persistent struggle. And it doesn't even start with economics. It starts with something way more personal.
You know, the philosopher Seneca once said, "We suffer more in our imagination than we do in reality." And look, while that might be true for some generational complaints we hear, for Gen X, the data shows the struggle is very, very real. So get this. A recent poll across 30 different countries asked people about their happiness. And for Gen X, nearly a third of them, that's 31%, reported being not very happy or not happy at all. That is the highest level of unhappiness of any living generation.
Now, what's really fascinating here is how this lines up perfectly with a concept that social scientists call the U-bend of life. The theory basically says that our happiness is high when we're young, it dips to its absolute lowest point in middle age, and then it rises again as we get older. And guess who is smack dab at the bottom of that curve right now? Yep, Generation X. And here is a huge reason why they're at that low point. They are the absolute classic sandwich generation. They're squeezed between taking care of their own kids and their aging boomer parents. They spend more than double the share of their income on caregiving than the boomers ever did.
So you've got this personal pressure, and then you compound that with their financial lives. When you look at the economic story of Gen X, one theme just stands out above everything else. Just plain bad timing. Just think about it for a second. Right when they should have been hitting their stride, in their 30s and 40s, their peak earning years, the economy just imploded. Not once, but over and over again. The dot-com bust, then the 2008 global financial crisis, and then the super sluggish decade that followed. It was a triple threat right to their financial foundation. And the result of all that turmoil, while other generations saw these really significant income jumps compared to their parents, Gen X saw the smallest increase of any modern cohort, a mere 16%. Their economic progress basically just stalled out.
This bad timing bled directly into any chance they had to build wealth. I mean, boomers got to ride a historic bull market in their 30s. Millennials have seen incredible growth. But Gen X, they got the lost decade of the 2000s, a period where the market pretty much went nowhere. That window of opportunity was just not open for them.
So with stalled incomes and these flat markets, those key wealth-building opportunities were simply off the table. And this leads us to maybe the biggest myth of all in the whole generational debate, the housing crisis.
You know this story, we hear it all the time. Millennials are trapped as perma-renters while boomers sit on all this huge property wealth. It's like a cornerstone of the whole generational debate.
But what if that story is, missing the most important chapter? Let's ask a different question and actually look at the data.
Here is what the data actually shows. The single biggest, most dramatic drop in homeownership rates from one generation to the next, it wasn't with millennials. It happened a generation earlier. It was the drop from the baby boomers to Gen X.
In fact, and this is pretty wild, when you compare them at the same age, the average millennial actually started out with about double the wealth that the average Gen Xer had. It just turns that whole popular narrative completely on its head.
So this combination of bad timing and the real housing shock left Gen X on really shaky ground as they entered midlife. And all of this leads to one final, looming challenge: their future.
I mean, when you add it all up, being culturally ignored, hitting a personal low point, and getting hammered by recessions and a housing crisis right in your prime, you get this picture of cumulative disadvantage, one bad thing just piling on top of another. And that cumulative disadvantage casts a very long shadow right over what should be the finish line: retirement. Because here's the final piece of that awful timing. In the US, the Social Security Fund is projected to run low by about 2033. This is precisely when the oldest members of Generation X will be hitting retirement age, and they could be facing some pretty significant cuts to their benefits.
So, this is the question that all of this data leads to. And listen, this isn't about saying other generations have it easy. Everyone faces their own headwinds, their own unique economic and cultural landscape.
But the case for Gen X is one of quiet, compounding hits. A personal low point colliding with economic bad luck, a housing shock that went unnoticed, and a forgotten place in the culture. That really powerful combination suggests they may indeed have the toughest road of all.
We have reached the end of our explainer. Goodbye.